Shalom from Jerusalem. This is Watchmen Talk, a series of conversations with Israeli experts and practitioners in the fields of military art, diplomacy, security, intelligence. And we are very pleased and honored to have with us as a guest retired Brigadier General Yom-Tov Tamir.
Thank you for having me.
A decorated combat officer, especially in armor formations. You have commanded in 3 wars on all levels. And let me first ask, quite recently, the Israeli Defense Forces has once again elevated an infantry officer, in this case a paratroop and special forces Major General, to the position of Chief of General Staff. And so it turns out that pure armor officers, if there were any, because even the earliest ones converted from infantry, but pure infantry officers have not commanded the Israeli military ever since the Yom Kippur War. Is that a phenomenon you, veteran tank officers, are comfortable with?
Yeah, as part of the branch, you feel some inconvenience that it happened. But in the second thought, I think that the Chief of Staff should be the best one. And I'm not saying that there are no others that they have an armor background that are fitted to this position. But somehow it happened. I have reasons why it happened. I know because most of the time between the war, most of the activities are led by infantry or special forces. So they are appearing in the front. And somehow we as armor officer, we are a little bit in the background.
Because you are the insurance for the Great War.
That's right. But no Great War now, and maybe in the future the Great War will look different. So it happened that since Dado,
1973,
the Chief of Staff in Yom Kippur War was the last armor officer that was the Chief of Staff.
So there is the conventional question, is the tank dead? So the tank is not dead, probably, but is the armor branch almost dead?
No, I think there is a change in the art of war, because the enemy has changed. And all over the world, I think, that it's a mixture now of forces, a team that based on different kind of units. And armor is one of them. And because the old formation had passed, and now there are more
multi-branch.
That's right.
So, and you are following the Russian war in Ukraine
yes.
Professionally?
Yes, I don't know if it's true. Both sides, I think, are lying, and I know really what is the truth. I have asked many of my friends who were there, and I got different answers. What I learned from that maybe Russia tried to gain the war with the previous tactics and maneuver, and somehow, and of course also the terrain in that time of the year was very bad, and swamp, and all the tanks sank, and so on. So as you are concentrate on roads, and it's very easy.
Then you're vulnerable.
Well, yes, you're very vulnerable.
One of your positions, your last one in active service, was as the defense attaché and the representative of the Minister of Defense in London.
That's right.
And we have your memoir, a wonderful book full of your unique sense of humor, which probably also hurt you during your career, with people not always knowing whether you were serious or not. But this book, Circles Closing in London, unfortunately for the time being only in Hebrew, is quite a memoir regarding your entire career. So we'll get to that in the second part of our conversation, to your London years. So, but let's go back to your roots in the coastal city, or at that time town, of Netanya, about 30 kilometers north of Tel Aviv. You grew up when? In the late 40s and early 50s?
That's right. I was born in Netanya. My parents came as illegal immigrants from Czechoslovakia. My father was one of the chiefs of the Beitar movement, youth movement, Zionist youth movement in Czechoslovakia. By the way, he was, last job, he was in charge of giving the certificate.
Without which you couldn't get to Palestine.
That's right. And because everything was in politics, so this movement, which was one of the revisionist part of the Zionism, Jabotinsky movement, so they got few. And he, of course, he didn't took to himself, because
yes, noblesse oblige.
Noblesse oblige. So the last moment, he and my mother, they had to go as illegal immigrants and came, and he was in prison. And by the way, is one also a closing circle, because my father, who was a prisoner in the British prison, and now his son is a general and is represented Israel in London. So I grew there in Netanya, which was a very small town. Everybody knew everybody. Later, I'm a graduate of the military boarding school in.
So let's focus on this unique institution.
Yeah.
I'd like to remind you that in the annals of West Point, the U.S. Military Academy, there is a special place for the class of 1915. This was the class attended by, among others, Eisenhower and Bradley. And it is known as the class the stars fell on, because more than 1/3 of the graduates became generals in the U.S. Army and Air Force, of course, mostly because of World War II. Now, in your case, your particular class, class number 8, in the Haifa preparatory boarding school, sort of junior ROTC in American terms. You are one of 4 generals. Out of the 27 graduates, you are one of 4 generals, 1 chief of staff,
1 deputy chief of staff,
1 Air Force general, and yourself.
Yeah.
And several of your colleagues were killed in battle or as pilots even before they reached the rank of colonel. So they would probably have also become generals. How come your particular group was so successful?
I don't know, really. I could say that I know. I don't know. Somehow, we have graduate 27. We started, I think, about 50. And
the others dropped out.
The others dropped out on the way. Some dropped themselves, and some the institute dropped them. And somehow, I think it happened that most of the activities, I don't speak about the military or learning the school, studies in the school, but inside ourselves, somehow we establish some codes of behavior between ourselves. And everything was conducted by ourselves.
But was it bad or good? An honor code or a way around your stuff?
No, very, very, very honor code, because it's not like all the movies that good guys and so on that,
Hazing in the barracks.
Yeah. Yes. But here, for example, you had to finish, to fulfill your mission. For example, if you have a mission navigation, and you are not cheating, never. And in the debrief, coming back, say this and this I didn't make, and you going back and do it. And somehow we made it as joyful. We thought this is the right way.
So it's values in addition to professionalism.
That's right. It's value that somehow, and we had some committee that even if somebody we thought that he is not doing something right, it was kind of a tribunal.
With punishment?
With punishment.
What sort of punishment?
He will not participate in such and such activities. In our activities, not in the
social.
And everybody accepted it. And somehow, I'm sure that everybody is caring from his background, from family and around the area and from streets even. But somehow, of course, there is a layer that was added by the school and the boarding school. There are two, the military school and the
high school.
The high school. But somehow I think we added by ourselves some values. And
Now, in the 1967 war, all of you were either lieutenants or captains.
Yeah.
Those who survived, and one of your most distinguished graduates did not, Ehud Shani, we had one of your colleagues, Matan Vilnai, here for a similar conversation recently. And he mentioned Ehud Shani as
he was the best. No doubt.
And he was killed in 1967.
Yes. As a company commander.
Those who survived were going up in the ranks, and eventually you had to compete between yourselves. Did it alienate some of the guys, the buddies, when you became competitive? There are fewer positions, and you must compete with among yourselves and others.
No, I don't think so. As you're climbing up, you're competing sometime between friends and sometimes from some others that are not your friends. And I don't think that I don't remember that it happened in some focus that because we were together, I'm carrying with me something. And no, I don't think so. It happened. I think one of the event that was really it was when one of our colleagues was the chief of staff.
Amnon Lipkin-Shahak.
Yes. And his deputy was Matan Vilnai, both from the same class. Somehow, maybe down in their stomach, maybe at the beginning they felt something
awkward.
Yes, but when the time goes, you forget it.
You forget it until General Shahak did not help General Vilnai succeed him. But that's
another story. Yeah.
Now, when you had to choose your branch, you graduate from your house school and boarding school, and you are going to enlist. At that time, you did not become an officer immediately, only a corporal.
Yes.
But you had to choose, and several of the guys chose the paratroops, which were at the time the most prestigious branch. Why did you choose armor?
I wanted something different. I thought, because we were educated and graduate as a squad leader. And
actually, infantry
squad leader. And somehow, the chief of staff of the armor at that time, General David Elazar was a Yom Kippur, the chief of staff. In that time, he was the chief of the armor. And he invited us to a visit, make some marketing. And I thought that it's something different, the power and the tanks. Maybe I will try another way, not the infantry way.
General Elazar was very focused on morale. He had a troop, the 300 armormen, and a soccer team, which always tried to get the military cup.
Yeah.
And so he knew how to entice you and others.
Yes, and I think that he thought that he could have in his hand some good stuff that he will look on the future. That maybe it will be one of the layer of officers that maybe will be the future.
And indeed, your group, not only in armor but including armor, became a very important founding stone. And you personally took part, and you were wounded in 3 wars, in
That's
67,
right.
73, and 82.
Yes, and some other operation in between.
In between. So it was the right bet on your...
For example, in Yom Kippur War, in Golani Brigade, I think all the company commander, or most of them, were graduates from this school.
And one battalion commander who was killed was one of your friends from
my class,
Dubidro,
in the Hermon battle.
So you joined armor.
Yes.
At that time, Sherman tanks, very old, World War II vintage, old used Centurion tanks.
That's
and then you were invited on a very secret mission. At first you didn't know where you're going, and then you were told you're not supposed to tell anyone where you're going.
Yeah. The armor thought that they have to have a new tank. And somehow, after many negotiations, Shimon Peres, late Shimon Peres, who was in that time, I think, the
Deputy Minister of Defense.
Deputy Minister of Defense, he made some kind of an agreement between United States, Germany, and Israel.
Let me just summarize it for our viewers. The United States wanted to sell tanks to the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan.
Yes.
In order to balance it, and in order not to be the major arms supplier to Israel, there was a transaction by which Germany will get rid of West Germany, the Federal Republic, of its old pattern tanks, and will get a replacement from the United States.
Not replacement. In that time, they developed a new tank.
Leopard.
The Leopard. And and in that time, in the end of 1964, we had not have relationship, formal relationship.
Diplomatic relationship.
With Germany. So it was a top secret because the German wanted it to be top secret, the American wanted it to be top secret, and also the Israelis. So we went in a mission to go there and to learn the tanks. We wear a German uniform with a tag saying Oberleutnant Amir Besucher, which means visitor. And none of them, of the instructor, only the commander of the base knew that we are Israelis.
And the others, the instructors, did not ask questions?
No.
German discipline.
Some of them, I remember his name. He was Staff Sergeant Eisenhower was his name. And he asked, somehow we were replacing a truck on one of the tanks. And in the same group with me was the Kahalani, which is quite a dark face, and Adam Weiler, who died later in the attrition war, really blonde and looking like somebody from those countries.
Again, from your class.
From my class, yes, again, from my class in boarding school.
And his brother was also killed.
Yes, in the Yom Kippur War. So all three of us are fixing this track, and somehow the general came. And he said, he called Weiler, you don't have to work with them, you just
supervise.
And he said, Yavole, General. And later we continued to work, and he was sitting on the side. He said, I have a permission from the general not to work. And the instructor, Eisenhower, said, how come that all three of you are from the same country? He tried to find where from. And I replied immediately that Adam is from the north, and I am from the central, and Kalan is from the south side of Israel. And he accepted.
You didn't say Israel
of
from the country. Of course, it's a very big and long country.
Yes,
north,
right. Center, and south.
So you see, your sense of humor was developed already then.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, so you came.
So we came back with these tanks, and every night there we wrote the manuals and the lessons how to teach it, and we came back and we established a new battalion that all over the country it was called the German battalion, and it was top secret. All the tanks were covered,
and the commanding officer looked Aryan.
That's right, General Evan also looked very, very, very blonde and high, tall. And so...
How were you wounded in war? What happened on June the 5th, 1967?
I was a company commander in the 7th Brigade.
The elite brigade of the Armored Corps.
The Armored Corps. And I began with one battalion. Later, the brigade commander and the commander of division commander, General Tal, took me from this position and sent me with my company to another special unit who were our mission was on the northern path of Sinai till the city of Kantara.
Which sits on the Suez Canal.
On the Suez Canal. And then we had some battles on the way. Anyhow,
just again to focus, this was the division which had the most intensive fights ahead of it. Within the division, your brigade was again at the forefront, and the unit that you were assigned to again headed the effort.
That's right. It was a very small unit. My company, some anti-tank guns
on jeeps,
which was the commanding was General. Late was
Dan
Shomron, who later was the chief of staff, and we had some battles on the way.
Dan Shomron is the hero of Entebbe.
That's right, and. We finished one of the battles about 30 kilometers from Suez Canal, and then arrived Rafael Eitan, later was also a chief of staff, was the commander of the paratroop brigade. And he said, okay, let's move to the canal. So I was leading, and Raful,
General
Eitan, who at that time was a colonel, was in a half-track behind my tank. He was wounded on the way.
Because you were ambushed?
Yeah. No. It was a kind of a strong point. But somehow we thought that we will assault and finish it. He was hit by a bullet just in the forehead. And I continue with my tank, and later had the missiles, anti-tank missile Shmel. This is the father of the
Sagers.
Of the saga that appeared in 1973. And I was hit by I didn't.
Your tank.
My tank was hit.
Your tank was hit, and you were hit by shrapnel, or?
Yes, the missile hit the upper side of the turret of my tank, and I was hit by shrapnel from the missile. My crew took care of
your bandages
and so on, and they later came
Now you had a very long recovery.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time at hospital.
Yes.
And in our next conversation, because our time is up for this part, you'll tell all of us, how come after being so badly wounded, you still decide to stay in the service, lead troops, and find yourself in the Yom Kippur War under the most severe circumstances. So for the time being, General Yom-Tov Tamir, thank you, and we will soon meet again.
Thank you very much.
For more of TV7's productions and editorials, we invite you to visit our website at www.tv7israelnews.com.